Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. In this video we're going to be reacting to this Black Lives Matter issue. Ben Shapiro is said to have been involved in it, and he's said to have dismantled this whole idea, insisting that it has nothing to do with race. Very interesting, very interesting. I've not listened to a lot of Ben Shapiro's stuff, but what I have done is seen bits and pieces, and like Candice, I have seen certain things that I'm like, okay, interesting view. Don't entirely disagree with that. All right, without any further ado, people, let's check this out. Let's go.
Things that I wanted to share with you. According to Pew Research, the net worth of white families in 2013 was $141,000. For black families, it was $11,000, even less than the $19,000 it was in 2007. According to economist Edward Wolf of the University of New York, excluding vehicles and other durables, the median black family worth is just $1,700, while 40% of black families have zero or negative wealth. White family worth, in terms of financial worth, is 69 times more than that of black families. Given this disparity, how can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality?
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture that doesn't, and when, you know what, explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me. Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly higher than whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison, is so high. Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if it is, please explain to me how that happened.
So what do I think those riots are? I think they're depravity, I think they're thugs, and I think if you really want to make a difference, Thurgood Marshall, who grew up just 2 blocks from there, did such a thing, who was a contemporary of Martin Luther King.
Now that
You know what? You know what? Should I wait till the end? I'm really thinking about this. I'm trying to, you know what? Let's give other people the opportunity to say what they're going to say. Let's just not jump in. Let's see what the other guys are going to say.
Now I'd like to skip over to Dr. Seacrest.
I look at the Baltimore uprisings as more than just riots, right? I hate the idea when you say thugs and riots, right? White people riot as well. When y'all win Super Bowls 2 years in a row, y'all get off the hook. Don't make it seem like it's just Baltimore getting upset. So my 30-second answer is I feel the frustration of what's happening in the community, and I think it's a symptom. The uprisings are a symptom of a pressure that's been unaddressed for too long.
I'm offended by the language of uprising applied to people who are breaking into other black people's stores and looting them. This is a lack of values. And people who are destroying private property, destroying cop cars, in an uprising against what exactly? Against the black police chief, against a mostly minority police force, against the black mayor, against the black president, against the black attorney general, against against a city council that is 9 of 15 are black and all 15 are elected Democrats. What is the uprising against? What is it seeking to achieve? I still don't see what exactly the riots are seeking to achieve. Bottom line is, this is all, it all could be boiled down to just act like a mensch. Act like a human being. Honestly, it's not useful to riot, it's not useful to break things, it's not useful to throw rocks at people. And the idea that we're supposed to sort of correlate your level of outrage.
I'm going to stick to the 30 seconds on this
the
one.
last
Charles?
sentence, the last sentence.
Yeah.
The idea that we're supposed to correlate your level of outrage with a certain level of justification. In other words, the more outraged you are and the more angry you are, the more justified you must be, is absolute nonsense.
Okay. So, Ben Shapiro and the other lady, I don't know what her name is, but it's a shame they didn't introduce them. or maybe I missed it. They've made very valid point. This lady over here, she had the opportunity to kind of counter that point, and I was hoping she was going to come up with something other than feel, which is a right shame, because we can't always hide behind what we feel. We need to also try and stick to the facts at hand. Is that an acceptable behavior, to going around behaving like an idiot, trying to destroy your neighbor's stuff? These are people that you would have grown up with. These are people your parents would have grown up with. These are people like you were struggling, trying to make themselves better, trying to get themselves up the ladder, trying to make a difference within their community. That you then go, because somebody said something that you don't agree with, you go, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to destroy their business and stuff like that. That's not acceptable.
Then, since the issue of disparity has come up a number of times, when does disparity not indicate racism?
Level of effort.
Statistical disparity. For example, overwhelmingly men commit crimes more than women, but we don't say that the Justice Department is sexist. So, is there a line that you draw for yourself, or is there some way that you interpret statistical disparity and you determine that is not a racial disparity, it's something else?
Is it not answering the question, or is it confused by the question? The guy in the middle, the black guy, I'm waiting for him to respond.
We can return to it. That's okay too. Ben, do you want to?
Yes, it's called evidence of racism. When there is no evidence of racism, it's probably not racism. When there is actual evidence of racism, it's probably racism. And the fact that everybody jumps from there's inequality and therefore there is inequity, just because there's inequality does not mean there was inequity.
But there has to be racism. You can't say there's no racism.
Without evidence?
No. I'm just saying that I don't know which animal. Maybe maybe we're
talking
talking
about,
about
you're saying it's
dogs
racist.
or something. I'm talking about human beings, and I'm like, human beings are most likely going to have racial prejudices. I'm just so sorry. I'm just so sorry. I don't know.
That's a weak argument. That's a weak argument. It's a weak argument because, and I'll explain. It's a weak argument because behaving like animals and then being treated with the law that comes with that sort of behavior, and you call that racism? No, the behavior prompted that action. When there is an action, there's a reaction. And when the reaction comes, you can't then turn around and say that, oh, I'm now a victim even though I've just destroyed your stuff. No. You're fully aware of the consequences before you decided to take that action. This is where people need to be careful, because when you let your emotions lead, your decision making sometimes is not always the best. But when you're let logic and you're critical in your thinking, then you're more likely to make the best decisions. Okay, when we come to the inequalities in terms of the gap in wealth, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it's a tricky one because within the black community, of which I'm one of them, there seemed to be this idea of wanting to have this status, who has the best car, who has the best looking designer clothes and stuff like that. The wealth that is made is directed into the wrong areas. When people of other races are able to kind of divert that, they know that it is not about the short term. It's not about the short term desires, but about the long term, but also not just thinking for yourself, but also thinking generational wealth. That's something that's lacking, or has, from my experience, has been lacking within the black community. And that's something that needs to be improved. We can't keep hiding behind this idea of, oh yeah, we're not, there is a gap because of racism. Yes, there is deprivation in certain areas, but that deprivation also comes, or rather also affects people of other races as well. So we can't just narrow it down to one race. Also, where people go around and say, oh, it's because of slavery and stuff like that. Slavery also affected people of other races. Though the Irish people were slaves. There is a documentary I'm looking into at the moment of white people also being slaves as well. It'll be interesting when I eventually find it so we can all react to it together. But we can't keep hiding behind this. We need to challenge ourselves. We need to challenge ourselves and stop giving ourselves excuses to hide behind. Why would you want to walk around, I don't know, in a £6,000 or $6,000 shoes when you live in a box of an apartment? What could you logically have done with that fund rather than show off to your mate that you can walk around in a shoe like that? These are the sort of things. Redirect our thinking. Stop there. Let's listen to the rest of it.
I don't come from I come from planet Earth.
Charles, I want to ask you a question. So your default is that when there is no evidence, racism is the deciding factor. That is your default.
No, I was not saying that. I'm just saying that that you're going to have sexists, you're going to have racists, you're going to have all this stuff. I mean, I'm just saying that.
I agree it exists, but the problem that I'm seeing, and this is the problem with the general conversation, is that there's no solution in simply saying there's racism out there. How does that solve anything? I mean, when you talk about there's institutional racism, what does that mean? Show me a law that is racist in intent, and we will agree. Show me a police officer who commits a racist act like we saw in South Carolina, right, where a police officer shot a black man running away and it was obviously unjustified, and I will agree. But you need, the idea that you can craft a narrative based on no racism because it just must be somewhere out there in the ether, that doesn't solve problems for anybody and creates more problems for people because now they grow up in a milieu and an environment where they are told that every obstacle they face is from some shadowy, nameless, faceless group who is out to get them simply because of the color of their skin. They'll never succeed in that environment.
On that point, whilst is a very, very solid point, there needs to be education from that viewpoint, but also it is important that children are made aware of the struggles that they are likely to face. As a child of color, you need to understand that not everybody's going to accept that, and people have got their racial prejudice, just like not just race but also other areas as well. I say that from experiences that have been very, very clear, but there's a but to that. But the but is that we need to remember that it is not a system but people that are choosing to do this. If somebody does something, we need to be able to say that person did this, that person behaved in that way, and not just try and categorize a whole group of people as the problem. I just thought I'd kind of point that out.
You know, the weirdest thing is that actually in the black home, as I experienced it, really, there is no discussion of racism. Racism actually is a discussion that you actually come out and you face in the public, because it's a real thing that you have to actually expect. I mean, you're silly and you're foolish if you don't really think that that's going to be there and encountered in the real world. I'm sorry, this is just a fact of life. But if I'm at home and having dinner with my father or whatever, we don't go, oh my God, this society is so racist as I'm eating my steak, and you know what I mean? Oh goodness gracious! Oh, I can't bear it. My black skin's causing. I mean, no, we don't talk like that. Actually, we don't talk like that. We talk about, my God, Aunt, what's her name? Oh my God, she's got to take some pills because she's off the register. I mean, it's just like, these are the conversations we have at home. We don't have these kinds of conversations that we're having right now. At least in my childhood, we didn't have them. And I'm watching the people I knew growing up in the black neighborhood, I didn't hear anybody really talking about race when we were at the dinner table. I mean, it just didn't really pop up, unless it was an issue, it was on television, but mostly it was about family and regular life.
But I disagree. I have to tell you, even in my culture, there is an underlying racism. And I know that the panel today, and especially with what's going on in America, we're talking about white on black. But I cannot wake up in the morning and not think about, intercultural racism, okay? I'm not Mexican enough. Why? Because I'm articulate, and because I have straight hair and I can wear high heels. I don't have a tattoo on my neck. Yes, there is a huge problem with racism, no matter if you're light-skinned or dark-skinned. Absolutely, there is intercultural racism. It's absolutely underlying. And while you may not talk about it, your grandmother will have the favorite grandkid. If she's the lightest one with the good hair, that becomes the favorite grandkid in our culture. And that's, unfortunately, even within our own cultures, we tend to look upon, the color of each other's skin and how much education we have. And if my uncle has done time in jail, which, he has, then he becomes more Mexican than I am. What is up with that? I mean, it's sad, but it's true. It's absolutely true. It's like I can't eat spicy picante sauce, so I'm not Mexican enough. It's true, in every culture, whether it's Asian, black, Mexican, there is, while you may not have grown up talking about it over your, tea and toast.
I mean, in my family, if you're not a doctor or a lawyer, you're not Jewish.
You're not Jewish enough. It's true.
That part is true. This entire time, I've been trying to think about your initial question about disparities. Are they automatically tied to race? And at first, I think all of us were stumped because we were trying to think of the instances. I do agree that they are separate, that they don't necessarily correlate within itself. There are disparities. NAACP, we are the experts inside of the nation of bringing in the racial lens for all of the work. No, they're not necessarily going hand in hand, or they're not necessarily tied to each other. So that's how I would answer it. No, they don't have to go together. My job as a civil rights attorney is to be able to make you see race at every given opportunity, but no, it's not present in each and every single disparity. To your second.
What are the standards? What are the standards, the difference? I mean, you said that you want people to see race in every single issue.
Where it's present. Where it's present.
Okay,
so for instance, if we're
what's
talking,
your standard as to where it's present?
Absolutely. What's my, take something as simple as if we're talking about a disparity, say men and women. My job would be to show what does that look like when you have women from a different group, communities of color. What does it look like when we're talking about a woman who's working or stuck in a minimum wage job, not as a starter, but for her career?
Right. No, I guess the
what
question
does that
I'm
look
asking
like?
more
And so
specifically.
we bring in the racial dynamic of
Right.
how that affects.
No, I understand that. The question that I'm asking is, when do you decide something racist has occurred?
Racist?
Yes. When can you decide that an act of racism has occurred? Because if you have just a statistical disparity, has an act of racism automatically occurred? That was David's basic question, I think.
Right. There's obviously there might be there will be a disparate impact on different groups of people. That doesn't necessarily mean, I think what you're saying is, doesn't necessarily mean something racist is going on, even though there's a racial impact. So the question was about where do you draw the line between something that might have a racial impact but is not inherently racist. Yeah. Let me move on.
I like that. I like that. I think it's important that as a society we do more. I say I like that because we've we've we appear to have this culture at the moment where it doesn't seem to only apply to race anymore. Previously it was everything was racist and everyone was racist and stuff like that. And I can see that was done about 5 years ago, but now it's kind of creeping into gender and other areas as well. But whilst we're on the topic of race, I think when anybody, for starters, that panel was a bit weak. In the two on the left, I think they could have done a little bit better. That's what I would say. The two on the left could have done a little bit better. The two on the right, Ben Shapiro and the other lady, the other Mexican lady, I feel like they did well, especially Ben. He's kind of like ran the place, isn't it? But to the point I was trying to make really is the idea of race and racism. We do need to be careful when we are trying to label things. When somebody is racist, it's important that we call them out. But how do we call them out is the most important thing as well. You call them out by being aggressive towards them, by doing exactly the same thing they're doing to you? Or do you try and have a conversation? And at the same time, when you're trying to have a conversation, are you forcing that conversation into that person? Or are you going to wait for a time where it's conducive to be able to have that? Because at the end of the day, if we're going to make change, we're not going to force it through. We've tried that before. Yes, in the good old days and stuff like that. We've come so far now for it to start crawling all the way back, where people just kind of shut down to having those conversations. It's difficult enough to have those conversations right now because if you happen to have a different view to somebody else, they'll just label you as racist. So some people find it easier to just go, okay, and just walk away even before the conversation starts. We can do better. We should do better. The whole idea of understanding each other's perspective, I believe, is a starting point. For a black person, what does it feel like to be discriminated upon because of your skin color? Let's have that conversation. For a white person, what does it feel like to be told that you are responsible for slavery that happened years and years ago, that your father wasn't involved in, that your grandfather wasn't involved in? Let's have that conversation. What is it that is stopping us from having those conversations? And how do we think we can grow without having those conversations? I don't need a hero. I don't need my white friends to feel like they want to rescue me because somebody called me a monkey or somebody did a baboon jump or whatever. We see that all the time. It's normal. That person doesn't want to have a conversation with me, so the best way to kind of react is that. But that only shows that person at that point in time where they're at. It just demonstrates a level of ignorance that needs to be overcome. That's not my problem. That's that person's problem. I can want to support that person by having a conversation with them, but I'm not going to impose my views on that person. I don't know what that person's experience has been with black people. But if the person is willing to engage with me, then I'll be able to try and understand where they're coming from. But what I will not do is label everybody as racist. And I believe that you shouldn't do that either. from any part of the ethnic group you sit in. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this. I think it's actually quite interesting. I really like Ben Shapiro's approach to this. I thought that was really, really cool. And it was interesting how the black lady started with a position, but towards the end kind of changed that position in terms of that level, that aggressive stance that she had in the beginning kind of like faded away very, very quickly because she wasn't able to back it up. And that's what happens, isn't it? When you lead with your emotions, things like that happen. But it's also important to recognize when people are able to make that shift as well, which was actually its strength in its own. If you hold a position and then you discover that actually this position I'm holding, there is really no merit to this. What am I holding on to it for? You analyze your position and go, actually, nah, this isn't right. Then it's okay to change that position. That's where being critical and analytical and flexible in our views come into play, because you're able to understand both versions, kind of analyze it for yourself and make an informed decision. I look forward to reading your comments in the comment section below. If there's anything else like this, please let me know. I really enjoy stuff like this. Until next time, people, you make sure you look after yourself and you stay safe. Oh, I've listened to all of the suggestions in the comment section about me doing voiceovers, reading books. I am taking it on board, and I am going to start with this book. Is it my fault, Mommy? It is written by a foster carer. True story of a child that went through the care system and saw some traumatic events. I am just experiencing this with you guys. I've not read it before. What we're going to be doing is we'll do chapters, each chapter for each episode is only 7 chapters, so at the end of it we're going to do like an overview of the book, and it'll be really good to kind of engage ourselves in the comment section. If and I'll it wouldn't be like a video like this. It would just be like a voiceover of the book with like images and stuff like that, not off the book, just to kind of like keep that engagement. But if you could please give an idea of the days, the preferred days. So I'm looking at either Friday, Saturday, Sunday, one day a week that we could use as the standard day for it to be posted, and I'll try my best to make sure that I honor that. I'll go by the one that's got the most votes, and we would make it happen. All right, you guys, make sure you look after yourself. He has been Kings. Peace. Bye for now.